What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Final Fantasy TCG podcast. I am Travis TNT Tangeman, your host with the most, the ghost that cannot be roasted, and I am here with my wonderful cohorts.
What's up, homies? Zeth's back at it again.
Hey, it's Byron. You could definitely be roasted, let's be real.
And,
Lovely producer today is Noah.
Yep.
Who?
Our lovely producer, Noah.
Who?
Who's that?
Who?
She's the guy that built the Ark, right?
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's my middle name. I cut off a portion of myself and made it the producer.
Oh, okay.
You know, just can't have me doing everything, I guess.
No wonder you had to take two awful parts of yourself.
True. You got me.
Dad?
So, thank you for watching, and make sure you support the show by checking us out at Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, all at TCG University. Our podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. Go out and rate us. Give us that sick 5 stars if you would. And share us with your friends. Make sure you get the word out there. And we're going to go into our junior and higher sponsors here. We got ID, Andrew Dang, Anthony Albano, Bryce Rathsack, Clay Cardwell, Jacob Arshan Mashur, Jay Rogers, Jesse Cervini, Jesse Morrison, Jesse Nix, Justin Farst, Kat Maria, Kevin Broberg, Kieran Vision, Kyle Krosick, Lucinda Letica, Orlando, Valdez Santos, Paul Casagrande, Ransom MacArthur, Samantha Stevens, the baddest bitch around, Sean O'Brien, Timothy Friedlieb, Tamer's Evolution TCG, and Tyler Zane Pease. And also big shout outs to our sponsors, Cards Custom Build, Ink Gaming, and Dex Protection. Go check those guys out. They are wonderful. Let's get into some topics here. So I think the first thing we're going to talk about is welcome to the grind. What signifies a deck is a grind deck? What signifies all that stuff? And I think this was your topic, Zeth, so I'm going to let you lead off.
All right, so hear me out, right? It's like, it's turn 6. Both you and your opponent have basically spent the game kind of building resources. Your opponent gets to about 4 backups, right? And you've already dealt them 4 points of damage with whatever mid-range deck your choice you'd like to put in here. I like to use Marshall as an example. Your opponent finally plays Shantoto, and Luminous Puma comes down. They pick up one of their forwards that they've given up earlier in the game, and they say pass. It's at this point where people start seeing Veritas come down. It's at this point, this is where people start seeing Fina come down. Yeah. It's at this point, like, there are kind of like those key cards that kind of signify, hey, I want to take this game as long as possible, right? And it's one of those situations where if you catch it early enough, if it's in their hand, if they give up like a Fina early game, or in some cases, depending on matchup, Shantoto early, then it kind of signals the idea of, hey, if I'm not eliminated before we get to about 3 backups, I'm going to make this game very awkward for you.
Yeah.
And it's at that point where Lock can take you out of the game. It's where Veritas can take you out of the game. And that's where we start seeing kind of like those high-end cards actually start paying off. And where 5 backups becomes, or even 4 backups for some decks, becomes the idea of you've lost. Like, you don't want to admit that you've lost because you see them on 6 points of damage. You're like, okay, I just need 1 more haste forward. And that's it, right? You get your haste forward out, they break it. And then you have to pass because that haste forward is supposed to get you that last point of damage. Then they draw 2 cards, and then they say pass. And it becomes where their 1-for-1 trades that they're doing at this point are a lot more efficient because they're paying it off back row, whereas your 2 cards are playing the things that are trying to kill them. And you're essentially losing a card every time you're trying to do that lethal shot. Yeah. And unless you're able to do the last point of damage to kill them, or they deck themselves out, which in some cases can happen if they go to 6 points of damage because of searchers and everything else like that, right?
Yeah.
But in those long-term games where you're able to like pop Fina out, or Genesis Avatar, or Shantoto, and use Althea to have it happen again, that's usually the point where it's either you saved up enough resources in your hand that you can at least squeeze that last point out or you lose.
Yeah.
And I brought this topic up because I see a lot of situations where people are like, all right, so there's a chat I was in where there was someone complaining. They're like, well, they need to ban Althea because getting Shantoto'd 5 times is the dumbest thing in the world. Well, here's the first problem is that you went long enough in a game that if I Shantoto'd you 5 times, pick up your cards, leave. Yeah,
Just leave.
yeah,
Just walk away.
No. Then and here's the other thing too is like a lot, and there's kind of the connotation where it's like, oh, you really want to sit here and play the whole 30 minutes out. I honestly play these kind of decks. Like when I did my Fire Lightning build, the one that was more based on like my back row killing your stuff, and I only played like 5 forwards in it. The whole point of that deck, I actually got like the perfect response to it. Right, I was playing someone, and they're like, "Hang on, hold on a minute." They count how many cards they have left in their deck, and they count how many cards I have left in my deck. There's a 5-card difference between the two of us. Yeah, I'm gonna scoop.
Yep.
I see, like, when I'm playing, like, those long-term decks like that, I actually like the respect of, okay, I recognize that I can't kill you, so I'm willing to just pick it up and go, I want to move on to my next game.
Yeah.
Because the mentality of, oh, I just need to squeeze one more damage in and I'm going to win, like, I get it's a pride thing, and I think that's what leads me also into, like, talking about it as, like, an archetype, because when people recognize it's going to be, like, a long game deck, there's a lot of frustration that comes with it. And there's a lot of I'm beating my head up against a wall, and it's really soul draining to have to play against that kind of deck.
Yep.
And I want to hear you guys' thoughts on having to face like a long-term deck like that. This would be like 3-color Storm or Earth Ice, or even in some cases Mono Earth.
Yeah.
See, so my thing on it is that honestly, like I haven't been to a tournament in I don't know how long. It's been months and probably almost a year now, I think, since I've been to one. So like, I haven't had the chance to play against those decks lately because like I think
I can start bringing them.
I mean that'd be fine. Yeah, that'd be perfect because like
I would love
around
to
here.
Yep.
Around here for like us, our group, like you, Travis, myself, and Noah, like we don't necessarily play these long decks, like these decks that go into the long game, right?
And
I mean. So I play a lot of value, which to be fair can be taken in 2 different ways.
Correct.
Typically, your value decks are your tempo decks, or it can also be a more like control-y variant of a value deck. I do tend to like lean towards the more like control-y side of value decks. So I do play a lot of decks that can go into the long game, can go into deck out, will grind you out if you aren't careful. But yeah, that's honestly the way I see it is I play a lot of just soul drain decks. Like there are a lot of the decks that I build, people do not have fun playing against them because I specifically tailor-made them to my play style of I'm going to sit here and at the end of this game, you'll probably be mentally exhausted, but I won't because I built this deck specifically for my play style.
And I like that you bring up like the playstyle thing for it because like I'm gonna be quite honest here. For in some cases, like I won't be able to play a deck like this because I like the game being over in 15 minutes. Like
I agree.
Like straight up, like the way that Final Fantasy is designed is it's a 30-minute, best of 1 format. So if you're playing like a mid-range or like an aggressive deck, cool, then like you're able to have like the brain space for it. I think that's the other reason why like I also kind of stray away from other certain TCGs that go for like an hour and a half is because the brain capacity to have that active like every turn kind of stinks. And another part also is playgroup can also cultivate as to whether or not you play like one of these attrition or control style decks, because if you're in a local format that is very like turn 1 3 forwards, one would think, okay, cool, I would like, that's just a brain dead Shantoto play, right?
Yeah.
Then it comes down to we're both just kind of top decking cards, and even for like those long-term decks, they at least like having 4 CP to start it with Nordstallen.
Yeah.
And after that point, it's like playing a backup every turn, which that's hard because your opponent's still going to be slamming forwards.
Yeah.
And for me to play like a long-term deck, I need to at least be able to get to 3 backups to at least do some of the stuff that I like to do. And in that regard, when it's just barfing forwards, even like that's the thing about Final Fantasy, like it doesn't matter if it's like a 1k forward or a 20,000 power forward, which, by the way, there's an Une that does 20k damage to a dual forward because that's needed in the game for some reason.
God,
That's an
funny.
entirely different topic, though. Regardless, it doesn't matter what forward touches you. If you get tapped 7 times by forward, you lose. That's it, full stop, right? Doesn't matter how good the forward is. It could be black belts, or it could be warriors, right? Doesn't matter if a forward hits you 7 times, you lose, right? Doesn't matter the quality of the forward. So when you're in a group that is, they don't even really care about the text on the card. They just like having a dude on board, and they just tap you a bunch of times with a dude. Unless you have like your attrition deck designed, and that's normally in like if we're going for like the triangle analogy that normally comes up with TCGs, the rock paper scissors format, where if I'm playing a long-term attrition deck or a long-term control deck, yes, traditionally speaking, an aggro deck is what's supposed to beat it, because the idea is that if I'm faster before you're able to set up, I beat you. Which is why when it comes to like these grind decks, you tend to kind of see them go like a little bit less on the EX burst, because when you're playing long-term cards like Luminous Puma, Minfilia, Apuru, and Star Sybil and stuff. I mean, I understand Star Sybil is a bad example because it is EX burst, but you see a lot of these like 4 or 5, like 6 cost things, because the idea is that if I put in the payment now, I will see dividends later for me giving these cards. And that's why things like Minfilia are seen more in like control or like, slow game variants, because by paying the 6 now and getting the 2 characters that, or even when it's like when I'm on 4 backups and Minfilia is like my last backup, then I'm only paying 1 card to get 2. And that's pretty sweet.
True.
And so when you think of like a long-term like attrition deck, what are cards that you guys would think of that I haven't already listed?
Did you already say lock?
The 8 cost lock?
Yeah.
So I see him more as like a tempo card, as opposed to like being like an attrition piece. I mean, with Noah, he can become an attrition piece because you're actually able to get it twice.
So I think, the way I see lock is it's highly dependent on like how you build the deck around like playing lock. So like I think he can be played in any shell, but the shell is going to decide how the card is played. So like they're pretty easily control decks that are just can slam lock, just doesn't have to cast anything else. They can just slam a lock down later in the game and it does stuff. And then there are tempo decks that obviously make a lot more use of his -2 cost per card cast this turn ability, with like Storm. And then obviously we have like the aggro, an aggro deck can use it, but just cast some little dudes and then boom, play this lock.
Right.
Yep.
Did you name Kuthith, right?
Yes, that actually is a fantastic example of what like a long-term deck looks for, right? Is that rather than paying 6 for my Apuru, which yes, he becomes like a 3 cost by the time you actually play him, for 2, and with it being a summon, I can get it with Cryle, I can get it with Terra, I can get it with Porum, and at any point during the game, I can have it sit there in my hand and go, okay, cool, I'm gonna go grab my forward or backup that I really need right now, like the Shintoto I binned earlier, or I think another example that I forgot to mention was Althea. Because I see Althea more for like attrition-based decks, and it's not even just because of like Shintoto, right? But it's for cards like Minfilia, Mione, like the things that help you pick up the control pieces that you want to keep using. Shintoto is just the poster child example that a lot of people refer to. And it's also a nice eject button for your Finas, for your locks, and things like that. Another one I totally forgot about, 6 cost Famfrit. 6 cost Famfrit is the best mill card that has ever been printed in FFTCG, because early aggro, you're able to thin out 2 forwards and then not have to worry about it later. Especially if you manage to get your unit down, then he's a 5 cost. And off of
really good.
off of 3 backups, then you lose a card and you kill 2 forwards. That's pretty sweet.
That is sick.
It can definitely set you back pretty far. If it's like even having that card early on, like obviously if the opponent you're playing is pretty aggro, like you play that and you, let's say you have Yuna and 1 others, right? Like you're still like paying technically 6, I guess, right?
Yeah, you are.
You're still playing technically 6,
Uh-huh.
but like the fact that you're able to get rid of their 2 forwards because they're being aggressive, like they probably played enough cards out of their hand to be a little bit set back because then it's going to take a little bit longer for them to get back up, to get that steam back up, you know?
Yeah. And when that deck was huge back in Opus 9 was that it was when 5-cost Valfours played with it also, and that's when Riku was their win con. That is, for me, like, that is the de facto example of, like, a grind game deck.
Yeah.
My win con is just you losing all your cards. I don't need to hit you.
Yeah.
I just need you to have less cards than I do.
I remember playing against that deck for the local qualifier at LWG.
Oh, it's hard.
And, like, I didn't face that deck, I think, until top 8.
Oh, it's so hard.
It was so demoralizing because, like, I was playing water. No, I was playing water fire.
Oh, water
with
fire, okay.
Zidane and giving it haste and all that stuff, right?
mhm.
So mine was pretty aggressive.
So you had the natural, like, answer me deck for it in that current format.
Yeah, but like the fact that, like, even though I was pretty quick to, like, get damage in, there was at one point where it just stopped. Like, I just stopped doing damage.
Was it the Valfor loops?
I'm pretty sure it was Valafor, and he was just able to get rid of my forwards faster than I could put them on board.
Yeah.
And so then, like, I just, like, there's, like, you know how you're talking about, like, ooh, I just have to pay just to play that one haster and then I can win, right?
And they break it.
And they just break it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, like, there's no way for me to come back
you
in that
you just, like,
situation.
you just kind of tap your head against the wall, and it's like you want to get through it, you want to climb over or get around it, but you can't.
Yeah, and that's
and
how
the
it
more
felt.
time you spend on it, the more you sink, and then you just give up.
Yeah.
And the other thing with those kind of decks also is that, as we kind of mentioned, like, to, like, truly get over them, it's, yes, like, playing aggro is what would normally be the thing that stops them. But the thing with that is, like, you can't sprint it out to damage 5, because what will happen then is, I already see you shaking your head at it, because that's when Shantoto pops out, and then you flat out lose.
Yep. Because then they have all of their damage 5 plus stuff active. Because so I used to play a lot of, like, water ice or, like, 3-color decks with Une and Squall and stuff like that.
Une's another attrition card.
Yeah, very grindy card. So my favorite thing to do with Une was I would have Une on board, and then I would play Veritas, and then I would blink my Veritas with a 6-cost Famfrit and say, well, you're going to lose 3 forwards, and you're going to lose probably a backup after you sack your 3 forwards.
Yes.
So I'm like, it's just lose your entire board. Have fun. Good luck, have fun.
Yep. And the other thing, so my, like, poster child of a grind card is Luminous Puma, right?
Yeah.
Is that in Opus 9, one of the things that was discovered is that you play Larcacus with Luminous Puma. Theoretically, you could do it with Galdi's also, but he's a dark card, so, like, you have to kind of wait a little bit longer for him. Plus, his grab a monster effect is when he dies. Whereas Larcacus is you played him, and you got to pick up Luminous Puma. The idea is that when you had at least one Luminous Puma, optimally you'd want 2, but 2 was, like, a very greedy attrition deck, because you're spent the opportunity costs. I played 2 Luminous Puma, but by doing so, I have infinite characters.
Yeah.
Because
as long as they don't have a way to interact with your break zone.
Yeah. But, you know, that's when Mist Dragon started becoming a little bit more popular, and aggro actually managed to finally keep up a little bit with, you know, a couple of Shantoto loops.
Yep.
And I still think that there's a chance for it to be a thing, but with Luminous Puma still being, like, a 5-cost, if we could get, like,
It's just hard.
Yeah. If we get, like, more monster support, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
But with them being a little kind of on the edge of deciding for monster support because Mira exists, it's really hard to, like, give these attrition decks what they want, because we don't want another Riku situation.
Yeah.
Right? Because even like the originator of the deck, he even admitted, he's like, you know, I kind of made this deck because I thought it was a cool idea, and then once I realized everyone started playing it, that's a problem now.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of the look at the monster I've created, and you kind of have to bask in it for a while before they ban it. Which, speaking of bans, because, like, I guess another attrition deck that would have happened is Guido, but then they just kind of iced Guido off to the side. They kind of, like, wrapped around the neck of the turtle and said, "Good
They
night,
just,
sweet
like,
prince."
Yep. They just walked up slowly behind, just chloroform.
And then he wakes up with a pillow over
Yep.
its face.
Yep. It's just like,
But I will say,
goodbye, my friend.
I will say the Super Saiyan fight between Gedo and X Death in Final Fantasy V is probably one of the dumbest scenes that you're ever gonna see. Anywho, back on topic when it comes to like attrition fights. So, is there any other like bits that you guys have observed when you had to consider the idea of facing like a long-term deck, or when it actually becomes like a grind fest? Because
So at that point, that's when your resource evaluation skills get tested to the max, because you have to properly evaluate, this resource is important right now, this could be important later, and you have to balance that, because if you just look at, hey, this resource is important now, you're just throwing out all your other resources, you get the end game, you're just done, because you ran out of resources and they still have a million things going because they thought 3 steps ahead. So my favorite League of Legends coach called it would be called layering. So you have to think about how you're like layering your threats, all of the movements that you're making, like 3 steps ahead of your opponent, basically. And that's what grind games are, honestly, is just you have to think 3 steps ahead of your opponent.
Yeah, that's definitely one of like the toughest parts about getting into a long game, because like you were just saying, like if you threw away a card that you could need later on.
Oh, summons are a good example.
Yeah,
of this.
summons are a good example. Like, because obviously early on you don't really need summons unless they actually pertain to you, like maybe drawing cards or like searching out a forward or something like that.
Or like a cheapie for you
Yeah.
to stop aggro.
Yeah, exactly. So like not having those cards late game and not realizing that you needed it until that moment sucks. It just sucks.
The worst feeling for me is when you kind of get to mid game and you realize, oh, this is gonna be a long game, and you get that sinking, oh, it's over feeling without like wanting to admit it. It's kind of like, because I really like boxing, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like being an infighter. Like if I'm playing like an aggressive deck, and I'm just now realizing that I'm fighting an outboxer, which the whole point of an outboxer is I jab at you a couple of times and I kind of dance around your outside. And then once it's like round 4, round 5, I'm exhausted because I'm constantly going after you. And I
wear you down.
Yeah, and then I take a couple steps forward, I wobble, and then you clock me and I fall over.
Okay.
So, a really funny part. Just thinking about that, like the worst feeling is when your opponent asks you how many cards in your deck.
Oh yeah. I've done that.
Yeah, I know you've done it to me
with my fire lightning stall build. It's like, how many cards you got left?
Yeah, like, and then you're like, oh, he's counting because he's gonna wait it out.
Yep. Yeah. That is
So
a feeling.
So before we go to break, I think my favorite story with that is I played Mark Tyner when he was using his EX Burst build, like Shane's EX Burst build. We got to mid game and he's looking at his damage and he's looking over at me and he looks back over his damage because EX Burst is for like 1-for-1 trades and stuff like that. Yeah. And he realized I haven't played like an entire forward like this entire time, right? And he's like, wait a minute. He looks over his deck and looks over at mine because at that point he decked out before I did. Yeah. Because he still has searchers and everything. And I decked him out. I decked out the X-Burst deck. Yeah. That's funny. It felt great. And I showed him the deck and he goes, that's actually a really unique deck. Good job. And getting a compliment from Mark Tyner felt really fucking good.
Nice.
Ad time?
That's cool. Yeah, ad time.
Hi, and welcome to the ads. This week we are brought to you by Cards Custom Builds. Are you into cosplay? Are you looking to get into cosplay? In the future, do you want to show up at your favorite event dressed up as your favorite character? Well, then Card Custom Builds is here to help. Cards Custom Builds creates everything from props and trinkets and weaponries all the way up to full costumes. I've seen some of the costumes that they made. They are all fantastic. They're really good stuff. If you would like to get some awesome things for your cosplay or just cool stuff to have around, if you want to throw a Halloween party at the end of the year and be like the talk of your Halloween party, please go check out Cards Custom Builds over at Facebook and tell them about TCG University. Say that we sent you and you'll get 5% off your entire order. Please do this. They do a bunch of things over there. Clay is making a lot of really cool stuff. He makes coasters too. If you want to go get coasters, I think he's selling them on Etsy and on Facebook. So please, if you want to get some cool stuff for your cosplay or for anything, go check out Cards Custom Builds and tell them that we sent you. This week, we are also brought to you by Dex Protections. Dex Protections is in a never-ending pursuit to create the highest quality storage and protection accessories. Their designs and innovation come from die-hard gamers and collectors just like you, so you know that what they make is stuff that you will want to buy, because they are also making stuff that they would want to buy. They are on a never-ending pursuit to create the best product, and that is why they are the leader in the industry in creating accessories for your deck products. Please, if you would like to go get some new stuff for when we're finally able to go out into public and go to tournaments and stuff, go to Deck Protections, and there'll be a link down in the description down below for that. Please go check them out. We're also brought to you this week by Red Riot Games. They are a Canada-based online seller of things like Universes, MTG, and Pokemon. They're friends of the show. We like them a whole lot. Please, 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 please go to redriotgames.ca and check out all their singles there. And when you check out, use creator code TCGU to help support the show and help support them. It would be greatly appreciated. We like them a whole lot, and we would love it if you would use them to buy some singles for any upcoming tournaments that you might have towards the end of the year. Thank you. And we'll get back to the show.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you all for sticking around. Hope you guys enjoyed that ad break.
Tyler's such a
We
nice
sure
guy.
did.
Yep, we certainly did. So the next topic we're going to talk about is our most disliked Final Fantasy TCG cards. That card that we look at and we kind of just go, what?
What a shocker.
Yep. I will start with Zeth.
So, I mean, I've already talked about Vayne, right? But I'm not really going to be talking much about Vayne today. The one that really is kind of disliked for me, and it's not even just like a particular color of it, but it's Y'shtola. All right? My problem with Y'shtola is there's 7 different versions for now, right? We have the Opus 1 backup version that did... No, well, it wasn't a backup. It was a forward that did like ping damage. Okay, cool. Not that big of a deal, right? And then we got the Opus 5 Y'shtola that was the 3 cost that everyone talks about. The kind of the hurdle card that kind of soft checks if you have like straight break interaction, or that soft checks if you're able to get through a cancel. Because it is kind of a soft check now for decks if you can at least get through a cancel, which would be whether it's Amaterasu, whether it's Y'shtola, whether it's Lael or Summoner. Insert generic cancel here, right? Decks now are kind of soft checked for him.
Yeah.
And she is the most commonly referred to, especially because in some like smaller circles, they're like, well, if they play a Y'shtola Neos X deck, you basically lose. Not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Moving along. So there's the Opus 5 version of her, and then they still thought it was a good idea in Opus 7 to release another backup version of her. Yeah. And then also in Opus 5, there was the hero version of her that was the 4-drop that liked Scions, and then still on top of that, in Opus 10, they released another backup version of her that protects backups when you try to target them and cancel the effect and draw a card, and then still on top of that, they had the audacity to release another Y'shtola in another starter deck in Opus 13.
Yeah.
So yes, that is why Y'shtola is my most disliked card. Not because of her abilities, not because she's a bad card, but because she's everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you're playing Wind, you stick her in there, or if you're playing Earth with some kind of Scions, you stick her in there. And it's just like, I get she's a cool character and everything, but like, Hobby Japan, stop. You can only go so... Oh, then there was the Opus 11 version of her, where they made her an Earth Wind card. And then that just kind of ties into like where comes like a dislike from mechanics wise is when your description of Wind is I get to attack twice. that's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when
Wind does more than that.
yeah,
Please.
like when Gudon came out, he's like the brave. He's a 4-cost Earth Wind forward that's coming out. He's from FFB. Shocker, right?
Wow, shocking.
Because Opus 13 is the FFB set, and he's an Earthwind 8K that he can be dulled by summons or abilities. So, guy from Opus 1 dead. You're no longer gonna see him because he's quietly going off into the good night because there's now a card that has this effect, and he's better because guess what? He gets to attack twice.
Yeah.
So that's just the 2 lines of text. Is that I get to attack twice and I can be dulled by summons or abilities. So it's Guy plus. It's Guy in a wheelchair plus. Like he's in like some futuristic wheelchair with that.
He's got the rocket boosters
yeah,
and everything.
Yeah, and he has like the Splinter Cell headband when he's all like Bravo 6 going dark. It's just awful.
Yeah.
But tying it back through, Y'shtola is my disliked card because she's everywhere. And I do think that the design space that they're using on her can be used on a different character.
So mine is going to be it's hard to say between Larcacius and Mira. I don't like either of them, not because they're bad, but because they have so much potential to be like just really good, but that potential isn't being used because they're too afraid to print
Hobby Japan's cowards.
Yeah, because they're too afraid to print actually good monsters that work with those cards, and it actually frustrates me to no end that I literally have. So I have the stack of Final Fantasy bulk stuff, right? And at the very top of the stack
is Larcacius.
It is just the Earth Larcacius, and I'm just like, man, I really want to build a deck around this card. And then I go on FF Decks and I look at the monsters. I'm like, this is dog shit.
You have Luminous
garbage.
Puma. That's it.
This is actual garbage. Like the only like 3 that I saw that I'm like, man, I guess this is fine. And then I just like stopped building was the 2 CP Goblin, the one that sacks itself to draw 2 when it touches them. The 3-drop water one that says sack it to draw 2.
Oh, X-Ray?
Yeah, X-Ray. And then obviously, like we said, what did we say?
Luminous Puma?
Luminous Puma, yeah.
Really? Not Unsa? Unsaganashi?
I think that's fine, but like my issue was then I had to go into like more colors and I have to do all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to build just like a 2 to 3 color monster deck, just like earth, water, something, and it's not. You can't do it. It just sucks.
Because the Opus 5 monster list that was around that kind of like actually dominated the meta with its win con being like Green Dragon and like Kobleroid Yin and Shantoto.
I remember that because Shane played that deck for a while when I first started playing the game around like Opus 7 or Opus 8. Yeah, I remember
like it was a big thing.
But I didn't want to do that because I don't like the idea of just like, oh, I need to find no and I just sit here and I don't really do cool things with my monster. They just kind of, they're beat sticks.
Yeah, you want proactive monsters that do stuff.
Yeah, so like that's why I like X-Array, because I can like, I'll sack it to draw 2, I'll get it back with Larcacius. Or Goblin, I'll hit you and draw 2, sack it, get it back with Larcacius, play it again.
All right, so here's a good question. The new design they're doing with the monsters where it's kind of like summon-esque, where it's like either you play it and it's like a forward or like you get like a secondary effect with it. Do you like that design space?
No, I hate that. Actually, I think that's part of the reason why Larcacius and Mira are just worse cards.
Okay.
Because you are just incentivized to not play those cards because the way those cards are balanced is half of them are like designed around being played and the other half of the card is designed around you not playing it, which means you just have this half-ass card that does 2 things fine but nothing great.
Okay.
And I think that's what Larcacius and Mira need is they need a card that does great things, not a card that does 2 okay things.
So I feel like I don't think we'll ever see a point where those cards going to be super relevant, just because like if they do end up printing a strong monster, they're probably going to be on their watch list to ban those cards because they're not going to want to print something and then have those cards just go up. Like,
remember when everyone spazzed about Scaletoad?
Yeah. Which like Scaletoad's whatever.
Yeah, like he splashed for a while.
Yeah.
And then people are like, "Oh, he's not as bad as we thought he was going to be."
It's not like you can play around it.
The way that I
not
thought
hard.
that card worked was a lot different than what it actually works. Because I thought initially when I first saw it, I thought that it actually made you discard down to one card from whatever amount
Oh,
of
that
cards.
would have been soul
Right?
crushing.
Right?
That would have been actually. Oh man, you have 5 cards in hand.
Yeah.
Two scale
Yeah,
toad.
do you remember Sire of Insanity from Magic the
Yes.
Gathering?
Oh
It would
my
be
God.
Sire of Insanity and FF, where
Dude.
it's like you reanimate on turn 2. It's like, hope
Yep.
you like not having a hand.
I hated playing Legacy and playing against Rakdos Reanimator, and they just reanimate that card. It's like, what do I do as control? I had to force of will your Reanimator. Just do nothing.
Right.
So tragic.
But so what I think what kind of killed my hope for monsters is was pre-errata Death Machine, right?
Yeah.
Because pre-errata Death Machine, the way that he was worded was that as long as there was a forward on board, he would stay on board.
Yeah.
Now with how they've eroded him, and they eroded him during a tournament, which is the worst part, right?
That's awful.
So the guy
Never
that
do
was,
that.
the guy that was playing the deck got like totally like he got punked out from the tournament
That
because he was
that actually, that's fucked.
yeah, and
You don't do that.
and well, because what they did for the errata is that if at any point during either player's main phase, if there is no forwards, then he breaks. So basically, it would be like if Travis, if you have forwards but I don't, I lose Death Machine. I loved the idea of Death Machine because it's like cool.
If they have something you don't, then you get to start putting them at parity with you. I liked the idea of that too, but that's why. It didn't need an errata, man.
And you know what would be super memey is that we would have the Opus 11 Mirror to turn him into an 8K beater and then start
Yeah.
killing them with Death
Yeah, it's
Machine.
just
And
like,
then you just play a different forward to
Keep you at
lose.
parity, just beat your
Yeah,
face
and
in.
then you just lose your Porum.
Yep. It's like, slack my Porum, I'll get back this Famfrit or whatever. You played 2 forwards? Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then they had to errata him, and now no one wants to play him because he's bad.
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
That's bad.
what was your dislike card, Byron?
I don't really like have one at this moment, but if I had to name a card, it'd probably be Neo X Death or.
Really?
Here's the thing. with that card.
Really?
Like,
He's already on the ground, dude. Everyone and their
know.
mom has shot at this dude.
it's either that or your Stola, because like I do agree with like 3CP or Stola. Like that card is just.
It just soft checks.
It's just It's just like there's it just stops certain decks, right? And like that's a kind of crappy part about it.
So,
Clavat. So for our viewers at home, Noah is harping on a card from Opus 9 called Clavat. It's a standard unit from FFCC that when it attacks, it deals 1,000 damage to one of your opponent's forwards, and it gets 1K power. It's literally pack filler.
Yep.
Let me be real with you though. My obvious choices still stay the same. I think Queen and King of Eblon fucking sucked.
Yep.
But the
Magisa and
flavor,
Forza are just a better version of the two.
but you can Magisa Queen.
I mean, you could, but you still don't get anything.
God.
No.
I'd rather just put Forza out as a 3-drop 9K.
No, what's great is I was going through one of the local tournaments that kind of pops up once in a while. It's like a weekly tournament.
Yeah.
Someone had a deck that's called, I was told to do it, so I did. And they played King and Queen of Eblin, and the idea is you party attack with King and Queen Eblin to 5K Magisa, so you can barf out a 3-cost forward.
Oh man.
It was so dumb, but it worked.
So
And it also played 8-cost Zan, so you could resurrect Queen of Eblin.
Oh my God.
The deck was a meme.
That's
And the
so
best part is it got 3rd place. It was so
Did it say how many players were in that
I
tournament?
think it was like 8 or 10. It was kind of like a small esque.
It's not bad out of
but
10.
it's enough to call it
Yeah.
a tourney. But like the fact that someone's able to sit there with their little trophy and go, "I Queen of Eblin, my own Magisa."
Yeah.
It's like that guy. It's like that meme of The Office where he's shaking the guys who you see Steve Carell's hand. That Office meme where it's like, my competitive friend who said, good job. Me with my King and Queen Eblin meme deck that got Magisa off.
Man.
Honestly, we missed a perfect opportunity for a thumbnail, because if we realized we were actually going to be doing this topic and this wasn't just something that I interjected in here because we didn't have topics.
Don't say that. They don't know that at home.
They don't
No,
know
no,
that.
no, no.
Shh.
I can figure out topics.
Censor that out.
And then we could have made the thumbnail for this video just Abakio sipping his tea, and then we're all kicking Neo X-Death on the ground, and then Byron just jumps in because his face is just painted on Abakio's.
Yeah. So jumping back on that, what about X-Death is it for you?
So that card, just the fact that you have to check it twice or almost 3 times depending on what you're doing. You can't necessarily get rid of it with just one of your regular let's say a summon that deals a certain amount of damage.
So or Alexander, because Alexander does it.
Yeah. So those cards that you play that usually gets rid of forwards, but then the fact that Neo Access is 10k, right? The fact that it's just a little bit higher than normal 4
So
drops.
The burn damage requirement's kind of hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have the 4-cost Bahamut that does it, and we also have Cloud that also straight breaks him.
Yeah.
And Modifier Samurais did tech that part in, so that way they can handle him. I actually kind of I didn't realize until reflecting later on after X-Death, because everyone had the fear that the Earth Water X-Death deck was just gonna straight cheese everyone, because there was a goofy meme that when X-Death first came out, there was a guy I saw that he's okay, the idea of X-Death is I'm gonna play an Earth Water 43 EX burst deck, and X-Death, the whole point of it is to search X-Death and play him turn 1. That's the whole point of the deck, right? Until people realize that Opus 8 Alexander's a card, right? And I think with Alexander coming back into the format, I really think's healthy, because what that allows for it also is that it also keeps Scions in check also, because Alice is a 4-cost backup. And when you can go, oh, you barfed out 4 Scions with haste? No, you don't. Yeah. And then they get really sad, and then you Shantoto them, and then they get really sad, and you remind them, why not to play Scions?
Double sad. Yep.
Because...
Stop it.
No, just get help.
Get some help.
No.
Quit playing Styles. Play a real deck.
Wow. All right. Anywho, but the thing with X-Death is I do kind of see it as a slight problem when because soft checks are fine in a card game, but when you hard check turn 1, if they're able to stop you, that sucks. Yeah. It really sucks.
Because you're not able to play your if you're a slower deck. You cannot play slow against it. And if that is what your deck does, it needs to ramp up in order for it to be able to get rid of it. There's no way that you're going to get rid of it.
Or you have to turn 1 Toto. It feels awful.
Yeah. If you play slow against Neo X-Death, you just get eaten. They just eat you up and you don't get to play. So that's how I see that.
Yep.
You good? Do you guys think that we did this topic justice?
No.
I'll
revisit it next episode.
I was gonna say this is one of those that every 2 or 3 opus that we can kind of come back and just be hey, after playing the game a little bit longer, this is a card in particular that I've started to find a little bit of discomfort in. Yeah. Because as formats changed and as things evolved, remember Guido came back, and no one expected that. It's the Spanish Inquisition, man. Guido got banned.
Yeah.
Then who's to say? Maybe Hope comes out and it becomes a format where people get sick and tired of seeing Eduardo because he dole freezes your entire board. Yeah. And then they return it back to hand. They do it every other turn. Yeah. And then you just feel bad. But that's my bet.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate it. We're going to go into the post-show. If you would like to, you can also check me personally out on twitch.tv/ohmrmatsu and also on YouTube, also at ohmrmatsu. I appreciate you all, and have a wonderful night.
Bye, homies.
See ya.